G'day guys, Sammy here, coaching module Insufficient Intent 2026. Laws of the game. Here we go again, that's the law there. We keep working through, we know what our cues are. So insufficient intent free kicks will continue to be awarded. We still utilise our same cues. So force, more likely to pay if the ball is forced over the boundary line with an element of force. Direction, more likely to pay if the ball is forced directly towards the boundary line. Teammates, more likely to pay if the ball is forced over the boundary line with no teammates in the vicinity. Couple notes to be reminded about. It will be rare to pay an insufficient intent free kick from a ruck contest. Best not to pay. It'll be rare to pay an insufficient intent free kick from a marking contest. Best not to pay. So having a look at a couple insufficient intent kick options. So remember, with last disposal now coming in, a lot of the times insufficient intent will be replaced with last disposal between the arcs. So let's have a look at some kicks inside the arc. So remember, insufficient intent can still be paid around the ground and inside the arcs, but from a kick, we're going to get this kick go out inside the arc. From where it came from, we look at force. So there's an element of force there with the kick. So it's directly towards the boundary line and there's no teammates in the vicinity. So similar with this one, even though the kick comes from outside the arc, the ball goes out of bounds inside the arc, so we can still pay insufficient intent from a kick in this situation here. And we look at the same thing. And we know when the ball is kicked off the ground, you run the risk. So have a look at a couple of handballs inside the arc. So remember, insufficient intent from a handball, still paid inside the arc. Between the arcs though, we're paying last disposal now. So a handball there, out of bounds, correctly paid, insufficient intent. And we look at the force, direction, teammates. It all ticks a lot of those boxes. All right, let's have a look at these ones. So another situation. So our alarm bell should start to go off. No, he's had prior opportunity. He's probably got to make a legal disposal, and he handballs it directly at the line. So it's got the force, it's got the direction, and it's got there's no teammates in the vicinity. So it ticks all boxes in those situations. So remember now, with last disposal in play, insufficient intent still in play around the ground, especially between the arcs. You can still pay for forces the ball out of bounds. Okay, so have a look at forcing the ball out of bounds. We've got a few of these examples. So you might see a few more of these trying to prevent last disposal free kicks. But we see the ball forced out of bounds there. Force direction teammates. Tick, tick, tick. All right. Looking at this one too. Forces the ball forward, out of bounds. All right, so it meets our cues. So just continue to be aware that forcing the ball out of bounds can still be paid as insufficient intent. So when the ball goes towards those boundary line, continue to heighten your awareness about that. So have a look at another example from AFL. So
you pay insufficient intent to Brisbane.
Insufficient intent.
There you go, you heard in the comms there. So if you have a look again, kick comes down the line, and then there's a forcing the ball out of bounds action there.
You pay insufficient intent to Brisbane.
Insufficient intent.
Cool. Next one, bit of a different one. So understanding that the marking contest is now over in this situation. So balls hit the ground, Carlton punches the ball out of bounds. So if you have a look at this again, so marking contest finished, ball hit the ground, ball punched out. So it's a forcing the ball out of play action there. So it comes from a handball and punched out of bounds. So now we're inside the arc, but you can still pay it like you would around the ground from an insufficient intent for forcing the ball out. Just remember, if you're paying insufficient intent for a kick or handball, that's inside 50 only now. So let's have a look at some walking the ball out of bounds. So that can be applied all around the ground. So some key notes when we look at this about paying insufficient intent for walking over the line. We need to know and understand if the ball was controlled by the player within the field of play. We also need to know that the player was able to stay in the field of play and that momentum played no part in the ball going out of bounds. If you've got any doubt in your decision, should throw the ball in.
He's halving contests, he's intercept.
Let's have a look at this example.
Outstanding.
In racing parlance, he's been electric first up.
So we see...
Got to see it
here,
out though.
ball
Green
spills
towel,
out, play on.
stripped by Brown. Mentha would have
Ball
been
goes
off
towards
and
the boundary
gone.
line. Where we play,
Overruns
picks
it.
up, moves
Gardner
in one
does it.
direction, and then
Oh,
walks
he's
the
just
ball
pulled
out.
a Jay Dullhouse.
So if we look at what we were looking at before, we know that momentum hasn't taken him over the line. He's had the ability to stay in the field of play, and he's elected to walk the ball out.
He
So
walked
correct
himself.
insufficient intent paid there. Very similar one here. So we know momentum hasn't taken him out here. We know he could have stayed in the field of play, and he walked the ball out. So another really good insufficient intent. So let's have a look at some examples where we'd be saying we're comfortable with the ball being thrown in under this. So there's doubt here around whether this player has been affected by momentum and that he could stay in the field of play. So I have doubt over that. So we're happy with the ball being thrown in this example. AFL example.
Still mate.
Similar here. Ball picked up
Thank you.
close to the line. Unsure around whether the
want a
player was
JP?
able to
Yep.
stay in the field of play and that momentum didn't play a part. So we're going to throw that one in as well. Up to Southport. So a really good one when we talk about controlling the ball inside the field of play and momentum. We probably have a lot of doubt over all three of these points in this situation. So happy with a boundary throw-in occurring. Still at Southport. So once again, probably really hard from this camera angle for us to really work this one out. But hard to know where that ball was controlled, especially when you're probably in the umpire's shoes from this situation, from where the camera is. Unsure of where that ball was controlled and whether it was in the field of play or not, and if momentum played a part or not, and if the player was able to stay in the field of play. So once again, continue to refamiliarise yourself with the cues, which is the force, direction, teammates. Understand that it's going to be rare to pay insufficient intent from a ruck contest, and it's going to be rare from a marking contest also. Understand now, with last disposal coming in, it's going to replace your kicks and handball insufficient intents between the arcs. But kicks and handball insufficient intents can still be paid inside of 50. Walks can still be paid all over the ground, and forcing the ball can still be paid all over the ground. So that's your insufficient intent coaching module. Chat soon. Thanks, guys.